Welcome to Inside the Upside Down, where we are going to be talking about witches, witch trials, and all kinds of history and the historical significance of those witch trials. Coming up here in just a moment. Okay, well, welcome to Inside the Upside Down. Mike Ricksecker with Shauna Wankel. And we're continuing on with our witch theme for this Halloween. So we just had Edge of the Rabbit Hole with Vanessa Hogel talking all things witchy. We talked about some of the history, a lot of different concepts, ideas. We were showing off tarot cards and all kinds of stuff, and really got into some of the nuts and bolts. This hour, we're going to talk about some of that sordid, very bloody history of witches and witchcraft, and really how just it was ridiculous. I mean, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that it was pretty horrific, but it just made me even happier and even more of a hater of organized religion. So, yeah. So
we'll get into that. Real quick, we did it at the end of the last show. We'll do it at the beginning of this one because we know as we get later on with Inside the Upside Down, it gets very late in some areas of the world. So, but just real quick, we did just hit 9,000 subscribers, so we're doing the giveaway that we usually do. And so just hit us up on any other social media platform other than this one. Don't do it on YouTube. Just throw in your name, say, hey, I want to be entered, and we'll draw the name next week. So that could be like our Facebook page, one of our personal Facebooks, message us. Could be on Twitter, could be through the website, whatever. Instagram, just not here on YouTube. So let us know. We will enter you. And then the new Encounters with the Paranormal Volume 4 is out, came out last night. A lot of you have contributed to that, and that is now available. Features Fairy Plantation and just over 200 pages worth of personal paranormal experiences, so you are not alone. So, all right, you ready to get into this?
I'm ready.
All right, so witches throughout history. So probably one of the biggest black marks, I think, over the millennia of persecution. I mean, a lot of different peoples have been persecuted and whatnot throughout time, but this is one that has really stuck. That's always been false accusations, always been religious based, and where, I mean, like I said, it's been going on for millennia, but really where it became prevalent for our society was the 1500s. So the Malleus Maleficarum. So like I said, we're going to get into some history here. And Sean Oldsmith, right off the bat, have you ever visited Salem? I did as a kid, a long time ago. I want to go back there as an adult. So there we go, the Malleus Maleficarum. So this was known as the Hammer of Witches, or the Witch's Hammer. This is the one that basically was like the handbook for going out hunting and finding witches, and how to persecute them, how to torture them, how to kill them, all of that stuff. One of the things that gave this book so much power was that at the beginning of it, it had a papal bull, and it wasn't written for the Malleus Maleficarum. It was written a couple years beforehand, just as an aside thing. Basically stating that the church was against all forms of witchcraft and sorcery and that sort of thing. But it was put at the beginning of this text, which gave the people of the time the idea that this text was backed by the church. And so they, of course, ran rampant with that and hunted down and killed, people in the name of the church with the witch's hammer. And that's really kind of like the big thing, even though it had already been around for a while. That's like the big thing that kind of like set it off and got things rolling in in the what was it, like the middle 1500s or whatever it was. They have a cool mall. Nice, Tom. Yeah, so some people have been to Salem there. Oh, that's very cool. Very cool. So yeah, that's like the big one that set it off. And so that frenzy was going on throughout Europe, the mainland. And as you can kind of track it, all the way to Salem from there. So it needed to get to England first before it would get to Salem and the new colonies. So the way that happened was through King James of Scotland when he made a trip to Copenhagen in Denmark, basically to pick up his new queen, Queen Anne. And she couldn't make it. Her convoy of ships was hit heavy by a storm, bad waters, all that, trying to get to Scotland, and so they turned around and went back. She did survive. Some of that didn't. So King James went to go get her. Again, meeting with a lot of the same type of bad waters. When he got to Copenhagen, Denmark, he witnessed some of the witch trials there and the Malleus Maleficarum being put to use. So he went back to Scotland with his new bride, with a lot of these ideas in mind, and some of that was starting to make its way to Scotland, and some of these accusations of witchcraft started coming about. And so James put together this document that he called Demonology. So now James is even writing about this, and this is, I guess, he's the only monarch apparently to have actually written a book about witchcraft and demonology. And so you had the Malleus Maleficarum that was about, you had this demonology book that was put out by James of Scotland, who later became King of England after Elizabeth passed away. Queen Elizabeth, that everybody's very familiar with. After her reign of 45 years, he took over. And so now you had this demonology by the King of England that was very influential around the land. And I guess the one that really got it kicked off was Gillis Duncan, who was accused of witchcraft by, and she was a servant girl. I can't even remember his name offhand. But basically, he would catch her sneaking out at night, and so he thought that she was doing witchy shit. More than likely, she was sneaking out to go meet up with a guy. He probably had, some sort of affection for her. Him, her being younger, him being older, and that sort of thing. But in any case, he started accusing her of witchcraft, and start torturing her. Crushed fingers, did the wrenching of the head, all this crazy stuff. And of course, there was the whole finding of the mark of the witch. So it was like find a mole. I would be toast.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. So she ended up put away in jail. Eventually confessed. She confessed. She went to jail. Was arrested. Eventually was burned at the stake. But she started naming names, and that's the thing that blows my mind in all of this. This is one example. We'll get into some others, but that's what blows my mind in all of this is how. I understand how they would get to the point of confession. They're being tortured. They don't want to hurt anymore. So it's like, all right, fine. I'm a witch. Fine. Okay. But then they would give up other names. And that's what really got it rolling, in my opinion.
right. Yeah, it was hard to watch. We watched it the documentary on Netflix. It was rough to watch all that. You knew it was bad, back then, but just like if you used an herb, to help somebody heal, that's witchcraft. It's just ridiculous. I was very angry at the end of it, and it had already, lit the fire of my hatred for organized religion, and that just really stoked that fire that I'm like, you know, I understand that there are people that go to church and all that and believe what they believe and whatever. You don't need to go to church to believe in God, if that's what you want to believe, if that's what you want to call what you believe in.
But back then, that was essentially their culture.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like it was just, you know, one part of a busy life. You know, like, you know, a lot of people today, it's like, okay, you know, you work throughout the week. You got all these, you know, after work activities, maybe taking, you know, the kids to go do a sport, or, you know, whatever it is. You have your like whole busy life, you know, throughout the week. Maybe you have Saturday off and you go do something, you know, fun or hike or whatever it is you do, investigate the paranormal. But then on Sunday, it's like, okay, we still have this, you know, ritual of going to church, and so that becomes that day. But back then, it was like every aspect of your life was your religion. For those of you that have seen the movie The Witch, it is very much like that. I mean, every you know, aspect of, you know, we're going out to take care of the crops. We're going into the woods. You know, every little bit was, you know, if God was judging you for something, or, you know, you were letting Satan into your heart, or whatever it was. And so that was the, you know, culture. That was the everyday lifestyle back then. And what I found interesting actually about The Witch, okay, yeah, it's all in like old English and everything, and people are kind of scratching their head like, do they really have to talk in this? What I found interesting was like a lot of the lines from that are actually pulled from some of these old witch cases. Like Alison Device, the one where she ended up making the story about the black dog. You know, guy walking down the road, old man, she's trying to say something to him. He kind of ignores her. She gets pissed off at him for that, you know, for ignoring her. So she kind of just mutters a curse under her breath, you know, as she turns and walks away. Well, all of a sudden he just, boom, you know, he's down on the ground because of a stroke, really is what it is from the descriptions of his ailments. And she's like horrified of what just happened. You know, she thinks that she really actually placed a curse on him, having grown up in a family of healers and, you know, people that used herbs and things like that. Not necessarily a witch, but just, you know, somebody from that type of background. So she thinks that, you know, she, you know, really put the whammy on him. So in her confession, she actually started making stuff up. And that's another thing. It's like, why are you making things up? They're like,
that just makes it worse.
It makes it worse.
Right.
But it's like something that's like ingrained into them because of their lifestyle, because of their culture, because of their religion, that, you know, oh my God, this just happened, so I must, you know, really be, you know, sleeping with Satan. And so, you know, when the trial came, she just flat out admitted, yeah, I'm guilty. But she also pointed out other people, like her own grandmother, her own family, like, you know. And so these people got roped into the trial. Her grandmother died in jail.
Right.
And so what I thought was interesting about it, because I brought up the movie The Witch and the Black Dog, basically a lot of the stuff that's the phrases and some of the actual sentences that were used about Black Phillip, the goat in the movie The Witch, were like straight from this Alison Device case with the black dog. So that was really interesting. But then that's the one with the little girl, and that was sad.
Yeah, that one was. That was really sad. I mean, it makes it even worse that children, you know, were involved in it. Children are very impressionable anyway, at any age and any time. So
yeah, so
it was a mess.
It was, and even back then, children weren't allowed to go and testify on stand in a trial. However, King James's demonology book made an exception that you could do this for a witch trial. And so this little 9-year-old Janet Device was brought up to testify against her mother. And, you know, the mother, you know, flipped her shit in the trial.
Cursed her own daughter.
Yeah, cursed her own daughter in the courtroom. Because here's the daughter saying, my mother's a witch. And so...
Yeah, and the little girl didn't look like she had any remorse whatsoever.
No, she
I mean, by still, she was so little.
She was so little, 9 years old. Her entire family was convicted of witchcraft, as well as some other people from the town, because of her. And there's a $10 super chat from Tom McNicholas. He says, "Happy All Hallows Eve." Yes, happy Halloween, everybody. So this is our Halloween special, and thank you very much, Tom. And there's Judy Wilson saying the little girl was later, as an adult, was charged as a witch and hung. Yeah, that's what they believe, because there was a notation in one of the documents of people that were hung as a witch of a genet device. Can't confirm that it's the same exact person, but it is very possible. It was like 22 years later. She would have been 31 at the time, and it's very possible that karma bit her in the ass and she got convicted of witchcraft.
Yep.
So Donna's saying, "I don't know why not as loud, need to get headphones." Okay, maybe that's on her side, because nothing's changed over here. I could check this sound over here just real quick, just to make sure, because sometimes Microsoft Windows will screw with the levels. It's a little bit on the lower side, but we'll adjust that a little bit. Thank you, Donna. Yeah, so these are all kinds of things that kind of led up to Salem. So that was the stuff in Scotland. There was was about 100 people. After King James, his son Charles, when Charles came into reign, he kind of put that stuff to the side. We're going to do this, the whole witchcraft and everything. So that really kind of lessened. But in the 1640s, there was a civil war, and so the witchcraft and trying people for witchcraft came back into prominence, and it was mostly due to this guy. Where is he? Yeah, right there. Matthew Hopkins.
Yeah, he was a dick. Not gonna lie, I wanted to string him up by other parts of his body and watch him kind of wiggle.
Yeah, Matthew Hopkins was basically a profiteer in this whole thing. He ended up giving himself the title Witchfinder General. So basically, after a trial in his hometown, trying to remember the guy's name. Last name was Stern. John Stern gave some evidence in a witch trial. Said he was going to go get some more, and was given a what do they call it? It was almost kind of like being deputized. He was given some sort of warrant or whatever it was, some documentation that said that at least in that county, he could go around and find witches. And because Matthew Hopkins joined him, he was also given the same thing for their county. And so they did. They dragged this woman in there and got her convicted and strung up and all that. But Hopkins went around at the height of his reign, because he did this for a couple years. He had like a 300-mile radius over 7 counties in England, and because they were in a civil war, nobody was like checking them. It was just he just carte blanche going around, and people that were accusing people of witchcraft, he'd come in, and it was interesting because at that time the whole torture thing had become very limited, and so his favorite form of torture that he could get away with was sleep deprivation. So he would be like walking these people around, or tying them to a chair and just shaking them or slapping them a little bit or whatever to keep them awake. And after a certain amount of time, they would just deliriously, in this type of a torture situation, confess. And that's what he would get. He would get the confessions. That was always the big thing in the witch trials, was the physical evidence wasn't there because these people weren't witches. So he would have to try to get the confession. That was always the hard thing to do. And he would do it through the sleep deprivation means. The thing that bit him was he actually got a priest, a vicar, convicted of witchcraft. And we'll talk a little bit about it a little bit more with Grace Sherwood. But with this guy, he did the ducking.
Right.
Which is the HR, what is the name of the documentary on Netflix? There's a couple of them. There's one that's Witches, 100 Year of History. There's a good one on the Salem witch trials, which I think that's straight up what it's called, Salem witch trials, on Amazon Prime, with Kirstie Alley, which is really good. And that's on Salem. So yeah, with this guy, trying to think of his name, Lowe's. He was a vicar, and the townspeople didn't like him. Remember, a lot of these, religious leaders were. Go ahead and say it.
Assholes. I mean,
I know her so well. I knew that's exactly what she was gonna say.
We always say, don't hunt, don't investigate like assholes, don't worship like assholes, don't
preach like an asshole.
Don't preach like assholes. Don't religion like assholes.
Don't religion like an
asshole. I said I was going to use religion like a verb. So.
Most of the people in the town were like, what was the phrase? He's not but a witch, is what they said about him, because he was just such a jerk. And so here rides in Matthew Hopkins with this accusation against this guy, which is just people, they're pissed off with him. They're not actually, he is a witch. They're just like, that's his demeanor because he's such a jerk. Let's try the sleep deprivation methods, wasn't working. The whole thing with the ducking was something he was not supposed to do, because that was beyond that was into illegal torture at that point. And basically what that is you tie them up, you throw them in the water. If they bob to the top, then the devil's in them, and they're going to get carted off to be executed. But if they sink, if they start getting dragged under the water, is because the waters of baptism are enveloping them. And so most people would end up drowning. It'd be like, okay, well, they weren't a witch, they're innocent, but they're dead anyway, which is absurd. They dunked him under, they actually don't know how many times. They dunked him under countless times, and finally he succumbed. He did not ever say that he was under the devil's spell. He never said that. He refused to renounce his faith or anything like that. He ended up saying some stuff like he had some imps go and kill some cattle and cause some shipwrecks and stuff like that. But he said that he did not make a pact with the devil, even though the familiars wanted him to. Mm. So when he was executed, he actually read his own what the heck they call that? Eulogy, yeah. So, but that would come to bite Matthew Hopkins in the butt later on, because when his reign came to an end, I mean, it got to a point where it was too big, and he was doing too much. He was being paid a fee for all of this. Every town that he would go to, he was making money. He was making bank on doing all this. He was getting paid to execute people, essentially, and so it was bankrupting these towns, essentially, because they didn't have a lot of money, and so like most of their money was getting put into these trials and everything, these executions. And so it got to the point where it was too much. He was being investigated. He actually wrote responses out to like all these different accusations against him, basically admitting like, yeah, I tortured this guy with the ducking, but citing King James's demonology book, this is why, even though it was no longer legal. He ended up dying of an illness before he could be tried and convicted of anything. So again,
karma.
Karma's a bitch.
Yep.
So So let's see. I know I've been kind of almost monologuing here. So if you guys have any questions down here, let me see if you have anything. Diane Hilbert, witches float. That's the thing.
Uh-oh.
What?
Maybe I'm not a witch.
Oh, you don't float? Yeah, you don't know how to swim.
Oh, wait, I can float on my back.
You can float on your back. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe I'm just half witch.
You're just a half a witch.
I don't know what the other half of me is. I can tell you what it's not. So we'll just...
Yeah.
So,
Pungai Fungi says it's all about power and control and has nothing to do with God. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. It was all about fear. Because now at this point you're starting to get into the Puritan times, and when they were pretty prominent, and their whole thing was fear-based religion, absolute fear-based religion. Kind of like I was saying earlier, where like every little aspect of their lives was consumed with God, and the devil was lurking around every corner. And literally they would say that, like a child just kind of simply asking their parent a question when they weren't prompted for any sort of verbal interaction is being told that you're letting you're letting the devil creep in when you disobey, when you do these different things. And even though it's just very innocent, the child's trying to ask a question. And so it's when it came to something like Salem, it's like no wonder, because these kids are growing up in this lifestyle that every single little thing they're being taught is the devil's around this corner, the devil's around that corner, the devil's going to be in you, and doing these different things to tempt you, and all this. And humans by nature we sin. If you look at whether you call it sin or free will, whatever you call it, but according to the Bible, these different things that we do are a sin. And so the kids are seeing people sin all the freaking time. So at some point it's going to short fuse them, where they're like, I'm seeing this shit all the time. Mom's telling me one thing and she's doing another, and shit, Satan's going to get us, so it's no wonder that this eventually happened, where the girls in this mass hysteria just freaked out. And
there was, I said, like, what the fuck is wrong with her?
Yeah.
Why is she doing, what the hell? I was like, this movie, after a while, I was kind of doing other stuff, and I'd be kind of listening and watching it. Every once in a while I'd be like, what in the world? Because through all of my many lives, I am sure I died a lot in that time. Let's be honest.
Come back, and like 20 years later, you'd be dead again.
Boom. I don't remember any of it, but I have a feeling that I was a bit of a rebel. How I feel about it now, I can see that probably over the years, that's probably why I am the way that I am.
Over all the lifetimes.
Yeah, there's still religions out there today that have cult-like leaders.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just that they don't practice what they preach. It's a sin if you do this. It's a sin if you do that. Got to go to church, or you're going to blah, whatever. You know what? If anybody's watching that's leading a church or anything like that, that's what I got to say. And if I'm going to hell, then all my friends are going to be there with me. So whatever my version of hell is, I don't know. Whatever anybody's version of hell is, I think that we're probably in hell right now. That's why things suck so bad, maybe that's it. Maybe we're already there.
There's some people that believe that.
Yeah, maybe we're already there. Or maybe this is like the preview to coming attractions, or something like that. This is like, it's like the movie Beetlejuice, where you got that waiting room. Maybe that's what happened. Everybody has their own little whatever. I'm sure that mine is being forced to sit with my hands tied to something and watch Ghost Adventures. I don't know. That's hell.
Oh, wow, that would be, yeah.
Or maybe to watch, that, and then have like freaking rap music or something playing, you know, in between scenes or whatever. God, I could think of many different versions of my hell. So
shiny, happy people. So Judy Wilson asks, what happened to the servant that started all with the girls' Tituba? Yeah, so she was the first she was the first, I guess, to be taken or captured, and she was the first to confess and all that. She actually confessed to witchcraft after, you know, the different things that she went through. But she was never executed. I guess they were saving her for last or whatever. She was never executed, and nobody really knows what happened to her after she was let go. You know, she was a slave of the minister's family. Yeah, it was one of the first that was accused, or was the first accused, and yeah, she spent all that time in prison, in their jail, and was let go, and watched so many of these other people die. So, yeah, didn't they even charge animals as witches? Well, animals would be, I guess some, they would be considered like the familiars and things like that if they actually got a hold of like a dog or whatever. People don't really talk about that, actually, about the animal aspect, because, I mean, stuff is a human aspect, which I totally understand. See, Sharon Lane, none of the accusers ever apologized that I ever read about. Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy with the accusers. You know, some of them were, you know, I think a lot of them were trying to get back at different people. There's the one that, you know, with even with King James in his demonology book, he originally intended it, I guess, to help people tell the difference between what's a real witch and what isn't, even though they're, you know. In any case, and so, you know, people didn't understand that, and they just took it as a way to just, you know, to hammer people, you know, kind of like the Malleus Maleficarum, and drag these people in as witches. But, you know, there's one that was brought to him where, you know, he totally figured out after the investigation that, no, this guy is, you know, getting his daughter to say and do these different things because he's trying to get back at this other person that wronged him, and trying to get that person convicted as a witch. And so I think that happened a lot with a lot of these accusations. Yeah. So, you know, people are like, well, if I'm going to go down, she's a bitch and he's an asshole, and okay, you guys are coming along. With the case of Salem, there's a lot of heavy speculation that a lot of the accused, because of the squabbles between the Putnams and the Proctors and the Porters, all of that going on, and that, you know, the accusers were, you know, more on the Putnam side accusing the other side, that, you know, a lot of that local politics came into play, and is why a lot of those that were accused ended up being accused, you know, or even that, you know, people that were kind of caught on to what was going on, like, you know, the girls are just causing mischief, you know, 2 days later or whatever, oh yeah, you're a witch. You're getting dragged off. So see, Judy Wilson, why did all this stop? Well, because, you know, some of the it was more local, like mass hysteria, you know, so very localized, you know, in these certain areas and regions, and then somebody outside the box would kind of come in and be like, whoa, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here, and put a stop to it.
Somebody with their head not firmly implanted into their ass, yeah. In other words, that was like, you know, stop trying to control people, stop being an asshole. So, you know, what the hell is going on?
Kick the table. Yeah, so, you know, it is something that just fell out of practice because people started realizing, I mean, basically with stuff like Salem, the Puritans basically annihilated their own religion. Because of that whole fear-based, ultra conservative, devils around every corner, fire and brimstone at every sermon. They scared the shit out of their kids, and their kids, way the hell overreacted, and they basically snuffed out their own religion.
Karma.
Yeah, and those that, it's not like everybody in Massachusetts was a Puritan. There were others that, okay, sure, Puritans came over on the Mayflower and all that, and boom, they made the colony. But then there are others that came in after the fact, and so they were able to take a broader look at everything. Wait a minute, no, we got to stop this. But Massachusetts wasn't the only area in the United States where there was witch trials and things like that going on. So the one that we do cover in Encounters with the Paranormal, I thought you were going to blast organized religion a little bit more.
I don't want to just let it all out in one fell swoop and just
okay.
I'm going to do it in little pieces.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I was just wondering.
There, we have, I'm sure, all different, paths down there in the chat room,
yeah.
all different viewers. I'm not saying if you believe in God, you're a moron. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. Religion is an opinion. And everybody is entitled to believe whatever they want to believe, and it doesn't matter what I say at the end of the day. That's my opinion. So if I don't want to believe in God, maybe I believe in something else that you call God. I might call it something else. There's some higher power up there, So I believe there's something. I'm not saying that I'm going to crack open the Bible nowadays and start quoting scriptures at people, which frustrates me to no end and pisses me off a little bit. I'm not going to lie. If I want to be preached to, I'll go to church, and I don't do that. So peddle your sermons to people who are of the same faith who might want to listen to that, and y'all have something in common. Don't preach to me, because I will probably do one of two things. I will either walk away or I'm going to flip you off. Don't even get me started on Jehovah's Witnesses now. I've got some really good stories about them. Woo! I have shocked the hell out of some of them. I'm sure there are people in this area that will walk the other way when they see me coming because they think I'm like Satan. I'm serious. Don't bring that shit to my door. It's hard living next to a church. I'm not gonna lie.
Which we did.
There used to be, I don't really even give a fuck. There used to be a woman, these same people that come to my door every fucking day forever and would give me the evil eye if I didn't pray with her, and I just told her, thank you, but no thank you. I'm not really interested in this. You believe what you believe. I believe what I believe. It's not the same thing. You're wasting your prayers and your oxygen on me, because just take it next door or something. Incidentally, next door, they weren't really all that hip to it either, but to each their own. That's what they did with their religion. They thought that they had to go door to door and pray for everybody. If you want to pray for me, fine. Don't do it when I'm standing there. Take it somewhere else. Pray for me in the privacy of your own home. Pray for me in church. Pray for me wherever. Just don't pray with me standing there, because I don't do that. I may wish that things be a certain way. I may hope that things be a certain way, but I'm not going to drop to my knees and dear God anything. I have reasons for believing the way I do. And that's another show, probably.
Well, yeah, we do have the Why series that we've started. We did, why do we investigate the paranormal? Why do we hate the ghost box? We took a break this current week here because we were doing the Halloween special with witches and all that, but we'll pick back up on, why, we believe and do some of the different things that we do. But yeah, I wanted to, get a little bit into that, not necessarily blasting one particular
so there you
religion.
go. There's your
What?
blast. You said, I'm surprised you didn't.
Yep, there it was.
Well,
No,
there you go.
I
It was
want.
pretty-
No, it's cool. I
was
wanted to touch
pretty
on that. Well, I needed a break from talking anyway. But yeah, and I'm not knocking anybody's religion or what have you, but everything that's to do with the witch trials is a prime example of religious extremism, and it can be with any form of religion or belief system. Well, they'll take something to an absolute extreme, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Christianity. There are religious extremists within that, but other religions around the world, of course, we've seen some of that happen over years and years and years. Religious extremists do some ridiculous things where now we're blowing people up and shit. Well, I guess the same thing back then. They didn't have missiles and guns and stuff back then, but they had fire and rope. And there we go. So yeah, religious extremism. Where you take one little concept and you just go crazy with it, and that's what was happening back then. So now I did want to touch on Grace Sherwood, Witch of Pungo. It's featured in Encounters with the Paranormal Volume 4. Michelle Hamilton was on here some weeks ago now talking about that, and that was one of those technical nightmares that we have had here on Edge of the Rabbit Hole lately, or the earlier show, Edge of the Rabbit Hole. So let's go into here. So yeah, there's that. Shauna's flipping him off. You can't see it.
You can't see him right
Yeah.
now, but in my head, he's hanging upside down by his intestines. So, yeah.
So there's some of the witch trials there. You can kind of see what's going on in these different things. So that was Bishop. What was her first name? Bridget Bishop. She was the first one that was actually executed in Salem. There's Giles Corey. So he was the husband of an accused witch, and they ended up accusing him because he's going around trying to plead his wife's case, and he was taken. He wouldn't plead anything, innocent or guilty. He was like appalled that he was even asked. He's like, I shouldn't even have to answer this freaking question. And so they kept piling the stones on him to at least get him to say whether he was innocent or guilty, and he never did, and he died from that. So we're going to talk about well, here's ducking. This is what we were talking about earlier, and this is Grace Sherwood went through ducking as well. And so here's the example of I guess they're showing it here with rope tied around. They're throwing them in the water, and see what happens if they bob to the top or sink. So Grace Sherwood, Witch of Pungo. This is in Virginia Beach area now. She was a local healer. She did more like herbal remedies, stuff like that. She was a midwife. She was very attractive, which the other local women were jealous of. And she eventually was accused of witchcraft, was arrested, all that. She throughout her trial denied. So they decided to take her out to the Lynnhaven River and go through ducking, and try that process, to see if we could convict her of witchcraft. So a 13-pound Bible was strung around her neck, and she was dropped into the water. And at first she went down, and she was bound up too, but somehow in the water she was able to let loose the bindings and this huge ass Bible, and came
Good
up.
for her.
Yeah.
It's a lot of bullshit to hold somebody down.
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong. I know. I'm going to hell for saying that, but I'm going there anyway, so it doesn't matter. Continue.
Well, death by Bible. I mean, like literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she popped up out of the water, okay, so she's a witch. But at that same time, a massive storm blew in, and just literally rained on the parade. So they halted everything. They took her back to prison, where they never took her back out to try to do any of the ducking or anything again. She stayed in prison for like 7 years and was eventually let go. So she is one of the rare cases in which she was actually convicted, actually went through the ducking process, survived, and was eventually just let go. So
that's a woman right there.
Yeah. So she was officially pardoned in 2006. So Belinda Nash, who was doing a lot of the work there at the Ferry Plantation to help restore it and all that, was part of that effort to get Grace Sherwood exonerated all these years later. So they have a statue and all that stuff for her now. So crazy story. So I guess she was the last woman in Virginia convicted of witchcraft. So there you go. What do you guys got for questions down there? John Holsmith, the Bible was a life preserver. No, it dragged her down. It was 13 pounds. It was like a rock. So
yeah.
So was it only the poor that got attacked? No, it wasn't always the poor. So like with the Salem trials there, so like John Proctor was one of the more prominent men of the area. So was Goody Nurse. She was a more prominent woman in the area at the time. The poor were easy pickings, and a lot of them, did get accused and convicted and all that. Obviously, the vicar back in England, what's his face, Matthew Hopkins, got convicted of witchcraft. Obviously he wasn't poor. He was part of the clergy. So it wasn't just the poor, although like I said, poor was probably easier pickings. So what else you guys got? So okay, so Tom McNicholas, so this is an issue we deal with today. Some people believe that if I'm a paranormal investigator, I work for the devil. What do you think, Shauna?
I don't feel like that's true. I feel like the people that are saying that is what they were brainwashed to believe, and they are afraid to think otherwise, or fear that what they believed whenever they were younger will still be true when they're an adult. So I don't feel like I'm in league with Satan. I don't feel that. I don't feel that way.
Yeah, even today, some religions, some denominations still use fear-based tactics to get you to believe.
And Tom, if you ever have any names of any of these people that are saying that to you, you send them right to my inbox. I will handle them. They will run in the other direction whenever they're talking. Promise.
Yeah, we're certainly not working for the devil.
No.
There's people that will accuse us of, it's really a subtle way that the devil is using you. You don't know that you're actually working for the devil, but you are. Just weird shit like that. And it's just not true. Or then there's the other ones that will say all ghosts are demons, so you're just playing around with demons. So
okay, Zach.
Yeah, so I guess that's why there's all these demons available for the ghost shows now. So
yeah.
No, I mean we routinely say that demons are very rare that you come across, and we come across other spirits all the time.
Right.
So no, we're not working for the devil. So what else you guys got? Sean Oldsmith, people who have been brainwashed fear the world. Well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a form of brainwashing, the fear-based tactics. Because if you're in, basically fear is used to control you.
I can think of a religion or two that does that.
I've been a part of some of those churches, so you
Yep.
know, I know there were some comments in there. I can't remember if it was the last show or earlier in this show about the Catholic Church, which I grew up in. Certainly back then, during the times of the Malleus Maleficarum, the Catholic Church was very, very heavily fear-based. I think these days it just depends on the church that you actually attend, because I've heard of some Catholic churches that still go down the fear-based route, but when I was growing up, it wasn't that case in the ones that I went to. I mean, there were still some of the principles in place of do these things or you're going to hell. You need to repent. You need to go to confession. Those sorts of things that were put into place. But it wasn't like back then where the next step you took, you were suddenly burst into flames and shit.
If that were true, I would have done it a long time ago. Every day I'd burst into flames and I'd have to come back.
Right.
Rise like a phoenix.
You'd be a
from the
phoenix,
ashes.
yeah. Shauna the Phoenix. Yeah. Wow.
I'm still here, so.
Shauna still has survived this life. Don't know about the other ones. Eva Geller, you dang devil investigators. That's right.
I mean, okay.
Right.
I'm going to keep doing it, so.
Yep. Yeah, there is some real shit out there. It's just few and far between. I mean, I can't even count how many investigations I've been on. I know people do count, but I haven't counted. There's been a lot over many years. And I mean, there's
continue.
Yeah. Inside joke, but if you saw that Edge of the Rabbit Hole episode.
Oh my god.
No, he's a good dude. But what the hell was I saying? I mean, there's been malevolent stuff that we've come across, but nothing that I would ever call like a demon. It's just, yeah.
I don't know if Gwen Clapper is watching or not, but I would have shared the status that she posted many times over. Just because something feels angry or mean or whatever doesn't mean it's a demon. When I'm angry, I'm angry. That doesn't make me a demon. So I'm not saying there's no such thing. There's some ugly energy out there, but not all of it is going to be demonic. It's contrary to what a lot of people may believe. It's actually pretty rare. If there's demonic energy around me all the time, it leaves me alone. I will just say that. It's either...
And I just must really love evil.
Yeah. I mean, it either realizes that it's wasting its energy on me because, it's either it realizes it's wasting its energy or it's just not there. So I don't know which one it is. I don't care which one it is. I believe what I believe. I believe what protects me, and I have been just fine and have had no interaction with demons. This ain't TV.
And Donna has a good question here. How can people be so against spirits when the whole Bible is one giant paranormal tome? It's a great question, because, basically everything about it is supernatural in nature.
Or an acid trip. They were licking some kind of medieval frogs or some shit back then, because I'm telling you, some of that stuff is weird.
If you take out the influence behind it and just look at face value what they're talking about how a lot of these different things are created and made and manipulated, and spirits showing up and talking to people. I mean, shit, you have the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost, whichever way you want to talk about it. There's an incident where an angel came down into a donkey and spoke through the donkey. You know, there's all kinds of crazy stuff in there. So how do you not believe in ghosts and the supernatural stuff, except that there are, I guess, in the New Testament, and maybe I guess it was probably there in the Old Testament too, where it speaks out against witchcraft and false idols, and that's where people kind of latch onto, those certain aspects of, well, anything that's not our version of God is then a false idol, and so you're worshiping false idols.
Yeah, except for I don't worship anybody.
Well,
so technically I'm in the clear, right? I don't worship anything.
No, because your use of Facebook would probably be a false idol.
Oh boy. Please, somebody come at me with that one.
Yeah.
Just once.
People go there with that. Yeah. I mean, there's a difference between something like internet addiction and just using social media, But there are people that go down that route. I know.
Well, to each their own and all that. To whatever they pray to, better hope they don't ever come at me with that. Be like, to each their own, but sorry.
Yeah. Sharon Lane, do you think that fear itself opens up a person to problems, opens portals? Well, certainly problems. Because you're letting that fear rule you. And so if you let anything like that rule you, you're going to end up with problems. It not even necessarily, it could be anything. I mean, fear is one thing. Drugs could be another. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that you could let rule you. So if you let fear rule you, yeah, it's going to be problems. Open up portals. I don't know about opening up portals. I mean, a portal to your own destruction, maybe.
Everybody has choices to make. There's good choices and there's bad choices. You make good choices, then you reap the benefits from those good choices. If you make bad choices, then karma comes to get you.
I'm going to get you right here. That's biblical. That's biblical. A good tree bears good fruit and a bad tree bears bad fruit. Come on.
Couldn't even tell
Shauna's over here citing scripture.
I couldn't even tell you where that is in the Bible. Hey, look, it's the kid on the bread.
Yeah.
I will quote that book more than I'd quote the good book or whatever. The good book. Yeah. Before I would quote the actual gospel, which isn't really much gospel to it, but I would quote that book, and I have.
I see where he's going with it. Sean Oldsmith, fear can create shadow people. Okay. No, can't create shadow people. Shadow people are their own entity, but I see where you're going with this. What you're talking about is, quote unquote, poltergeist activity, not a poltergeist itself. Poltergeist itself would be, what we call a noisy ghost, or poltergeist is German for noisy ghost, and that is a spirit that's going around kind of making a mess of things, being loud and obnoxious, and that sort of thing. Poltergeist activity is that same sort of thing, but being generated in a specific area, usually from a person who's experiencing some sort of trauma, angst, anxiety, and their energy. So usually like a telekinetic type of energy is making a mess of things around the house. And so it looks like there's a spirit or a ghost throwing stuff around when it's actually this energy coming off this person. So
yeah, mine could also play tricks on you also.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, something like fear could always screw with your mind and make you, believe things that don't exist.
Paranoia.
Yeah, paranoia. You could hallucinate, which is not a shadow person. That's a hallucination.
Right.
Yeah, a shadow person is its own entity. It's not going to just suddenly appear from fear. Now, there could be an instance where there's a nefarious shadow person that happens to be around the house and is catching on and noticing the fear of somebody and decides to utilize that to their benefit.
And getting stronger by feeding off of your fear.
Right.
Because fear, negative feeds negative. Negative breeds more negative. So, out of all the things that I believe or don't believe, I do believe that.
Yeah. All right. So, Judy Wilson, have you ever had a spirit say that it was a witch? I don't think so.
We had one admit to being a murderer.
Well, there you go.
Cafe.
There you go.
Have that EVP. I'm the murderer. It's like, well, okay. So then we went back in and played that EVP. It's like, who's that? We want to talk to that person. You know, don't worry, we won't tell anybody. You know, I mean, they're obviously already, what's going to happen to them now? You know, I mean, they're already gone. So it's not like, anyway, yeah, I'm the murderer. I've never had anyone confess to being a witch.
I've never asked. Yeah, because most people wouldn't sit there and say, yeah, I'm a witch. I mean, people do these days. You know, because our society is a lot more accepting of what a witch is.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, people, you know, like the different things that you do and the different things that Vanessa does. Yeah, back then would have been convicted of witchcraft. But back then you probably would have said, no, I'm not a witch. You know, all the different things that you do, we are defining these days as being a witch and witchcraft and all that. But back then you would have been like, I'm helping, you know, these people, you know, get healthy because of herbs, or there's different ways I know how to utilize and manipulate nature, or whatever it is that you do that you would be considered like a witchy sort of thing. You know, I know how to use these stones, which is absurd because, you know, thousands of years ago the ancients knew how to use stones, and, you know, somehow, you know, some people retained that knowledge or maybe rediscovered it and were able to use stones for different things. You know, so, you know, we're accepting of the term now, but back then you would have been like, no, I do this, but it's not witchcraft. So yeah, I can't imagine that, you know, that a spirit, you know, 100 years old or 150 years old or something like that would be like, yeah, sure, I'm a witch. You know, I haven't had it happen in any case. And so we'll take another one or two. And Tim Schoen, what do they do in these forms of media that real life witches do or do not do? And that seemed to be, because that's an IE. So he must have had a first part here. So Betty, is Ghosty a false idol? So yeah.
Well, we don't really worship him.
We don't worship him, no.
Yeah, we're just...
He's the mascot.
He's just, yeah, the team mascot. He's our light in the dark because he glows.
Yeah, I'm not sure why the IE, but I guess we could try to answer from Tim Schoen. What do they do in these forms of media that real life witches do not do? I don't know. So when you use the stones, you use the cards. I mean, I guess people do use crystal balls.
Yeah, I don't see anything when I look in one. You know, like the tea leaves and stuff like that. I don't see that. You know, maybe I'm just not looking deep enough. I'm just not, you know, I haven't quite gravitated to all that, the other different, you know, stuff. Mostly because it takes an awful lot of time and effort that I just don't have. So I do what I do, and it works when I need it to work, or when I hope that it works, or, you know, look, I only get 2 days off. Okay, Tuesdays are busy, so Saturdays, if I'm going to do anything, it'll be that, and it's usually like 5 minutes here, you know, or I go outside. If, you know, take a moment to go outside and inhale and kind of, you know, get in touch with, you know, your inner, you know, your inner goddess or your inner whatever you want to, for men, whatever you want to call yourselves. And sometimes it's just a moment like that, you know, and it doesn't have to be, you know, some kind of chant out loud. You know, it's not like it happens on TV. It could be like it happens on TV, but it doesn't have to be, you know. To each our own, you know. However you want to be witchy, then, you know. It's like, you know, Vanessa sits on a couch, you know, in her pajamas, eating Cheetos, watching, you know, true crime stuff. That's how she does it. You know, she has all these different methods of doing it. You know, I don't really broadcast it a lot. You know, I'll go out and spend some time under a full moon.
Yeah, definitely.
I take some time to myself, you know, doing that. That's how I do it. You know, I definitely believe in the use of crystals, and, you know, they each have their own, you know, thing that works for me, and I do an awful lot of reading, and, you know, whatever it says to do, you know, if I have it, I use it. If I don't, I use something else. You know, whatever you want to do. You know, not everybody has to be a witch the same way. Not everybody has to believe the same way. You know, we're all different. We all have our own opinions. I may not agree with a lot of them, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. You know, what's right for you, that's you. At the end of the day, I probably still like you as a person if you're not an asshole.
Right, just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Funny, I say, we got time for like another question or two, and then all of a sudden, boom, we get a bunch of questions. Nice. Where are these questions 20 minutes ago, guys? That's all right. All right, so from Sharon Lane, is the Bell Witch real or based on the family's fear? Good question, because I haven't gone down there to investigate the Bell Witch. I mean, I know a bit of the backstory.
But for $149, you can do it, though.
Yeah.
A head, I might add.
Right.
Which, I guess I don't know as much about how it's set up and stuff like that, because if I'm going to drop $149, it's going to be to help preserve a building or like an area. I don't know what that money goes for. I guess I just don't know it well enough. I haven't really.
Well, is it the house?
I don't really know that much about it.
There's the Bell House that's associated with the caves and all that. So, I mean, there may have been something back there, and there was the other follow up about you know, Bell Witch, or Real Witch, or Dark Spirit. So and that's from Judy Wilson. So these two are kind of together. What is interesting is, and if it is something, if it was real and not just the family's fear, I would believe, yeah, it's more of like a dark entity back there, something nefarious, something not necessarily demonic, but something, maybe something a little malevolent, not necessarily a witch. But something that's kind of interesting is that one of our presidents, Andrew Jackson, when he was still a general, came through the area to visit John Bell, because John Bell served under him during the war of 1812. And so President Andrew Jackson was curious about the Bell Witch. He'd heard about it. He knew John Bell. So he was like, oh, I'm going to go check this thing out. And apparently he was, before the crack of dawn, they were out of there, his whole entourage. So hard to know, though, if that's just kind of like the legend, that he was up before the crack of dawn, so, Bell Witch must have scared him. Or if it was just one of those, because in the military, when you do maneuvers and stuff like that, back in those, you would get up before the crack of dawn and do it. So, maybe he was just a trained military guy. We're getting up before the crack of dawn and doing our stuff. And, our stuff for today is to get out of here. So, hard to know, but he was at least intrigued enough by the story to go visit and check it out. So, from Tim Schoen, this is an interesting question. What are some of the more fictional representations of witch activity as seen in movies or TV or other media? More fictional? But what would be like some good representations? I would think practical magic.
Practical magic is probably one of my favorite ones, because they show like a darker side of it, but they also show the lighter side of it. It's about family, and the love of family, protecting your family and doing whatever it takes to protect your family. But wanting to, use natural, things to, help people, that's something I can wrap my head around. That's my favorite. It's probably one of my favorite movies. It's not, there's a little bit of hocus pocus in there and stuff like that, but it's TV. It's supposed to be, if it wasn't like that, it wouldn't have probably been as popular as it was.
Yeah. Oh, I even liked it. I thought it was a good movie.
I love it. It's my
and
favorite.
We're going to have that atrium in our house. So we grow herbs and stuff. One that not necessarily, as far as like the witch aspect of it, the movie The Witch, because the witch aspect of it was kind of almost like your classic, the old hag living in the woods who can, seduce men by looking, beautiful at one point in time. That's like sacrificing babies and all that stuff. But what I thought was really good about that movie was the authenticity of, the talk, the conversation, the fear of all the religious aspects and how it was just really, really ingrained in their everyday life, because it was, and even pulling lines in phrases and sentences and all that from like real witch trial cases and stuff like that were actually in the movie. So it was like, okay, as a historic piece, this is really freaking cool, even though that the whole witch part of it was very fictional. It's really stuff that they had an immense fear of all the time. So I thought it was really well done. Adam Tillery, have you watched The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix? Lots of witch talk in dark. No. I know it's, Sabrina Spellman based on, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, all that stuff. I haven't seen it. My kids watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And that was with Melissa Joan Hart.
I watched it.
Yeah, did you?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw quite a few episodes, of course, because my kids were watching it. But I haven't seen the Chilling Adventures on Netflix. I want to watch The Haunting of Hill House on there. I keep hearing that's really good. I just haven't had time. So I don't know if I'll get around to watching that. So I think Charmed is still on Netflix too.
I like that.
You liked that
too.
Yeah. So Murtaza Arif, what's the best book or documentaries or films on learning more about witches? So the one I was talking about on Netflix, the Witch or 100 Years of Witches, that was really good. That was just straight up documentary. They had some really good reenactments, so we learned a lot from that. Some other good ones. There's the movie that we were watching earlier tonight, which is just called Salem Witch Trials. But it has like Kirstie Alley in it, Rebecca De Mornay's in it, Peter Ustinov makes an appearance. So, there's some big names that are in it, and it's supposed to, of course, there's parts that are Hollywoodized and stuff like that, and there's times where it seems they may stray from it a little bit, but it's supposed to be like one of the most accurate as far as the way the events played out. And they did get into the politics and the battling between the families and all that stuff at the time. So I thought that was really well done. Some other ones, there's just some ones in general that kind of talk about, that kind of incorporate it, that like within the documentaries get into the Malleus Maleficarum or some of the witch trials and things like that. When you start looking for just like even some of the PBS documentaries that are out there on Netflix about like England and Scotland and all that, because they'll talk about those things and they'll cover it. So those are pretty good too. Let me see if there's anything else here that we can hit on real quick. And I think that is probably going to be it. Some people are checking out, saying have a happy Halloween. Yeah. All right. I know I'm tired. I've been up since like 2:45 a.m. with only about 45 minutes worth of sleep. So that was work today. But I have a video to complete for tomorrow, so got to get on that. Mm-hmm. And Shauna thinks I'm crazy.
Yeah. But the 217 Terror Camp is ready to see it, though.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty excited.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very, very interesting experience that we had there on Saturday. So, all right, everybody. Let's get to the shout-outs. So we have some of those are from earlier. Those are from Edge of the Rabbit Hole. So
there
for Inside the Upside Down, there is Tom McNicholas. Happy All Hallows Eve Super Chat Superstar. Thank you very much, Tom. Absolutely appreciate it. So, all right, let's get to the shout outs. All right, we got thank you, Donna Gorton, for Cheshire Catting the chat. Mickey Dole's birthday is tomorrow, so happy birthday, Mickey Dole.
Coolest birthday ever.
Yeah, it's my father's birthday too. So my father shares your birthday.
Sweet.
Have fun. All right, Lenore Moreno, thank you very much for joining us again tonight. Jill Nimchinsky, thank you as well. Liquid Dreamer, thanks for joining us again. There's Lynn's White, thank you too. Shay Carroll, catch me on her show on Friday night. Shay, go ahead and drop the information down there in the chat.
Oh, I'm off Friday night.
You're off Friday night, so you can...
Because I got to train during the day, but I'm off. So I can actually watch a show.
You can tune in. Wow. All right. Yeah. Shouldn't been a while.
I know.
Yeah. Sharon Lane, thanks for joining us tonight. And Stevie Nicks' score in American Horror Story. Yeah, Stevie Nicks apparently is a witch in American Horror Story. Betty Lange, thank you very much for joining us again tonight. Sean Oldsmith, thank you too. Chipper Terry, thanks for joining us once again. The Thunder, thanks for joining us tonight. Murtaza Arif, thank you for joining us for both shows. Appreciate that. Let's see. There's Judy Wilson. Thanks for the questions tonight. Eva Gellert, thank you for joining us again. I think I got Sharon Lane right. Pretty sure on that. EEQQ. Or is that EQQ? EEQQ. Thanks for joining us again. Absolutely appreciate it. Serenable. Thanks for joining us from out in Ireland. There's Tom McNicholas. He says the Haunting of Hill House is cool for Halloween. Yeah, it looks very cool. Anybody else? So I know people were checking out because it was getting late. Yeah, there's Beat 3 Airspace. Thank you again. And all right, I'm going to scroll back down. See if anybody. Well, yeah, Adam Tillery. Come on. Adam Tillery's in the house. Kathy Siliento. She says, "Blessed Samhain, everybody." Of course, there's Tom McNicholas, $5 super chat, says just for Adam's illustrations in the new book. Yeah. Adam's illustrations are awesome. So thank you very much, Adam, for those. I did see who else I see drop in here at the very end. Oh yeah, there it is. Nichelle Thompson saying good night. Thank you, Nichelle. All right. I think that's it. There's Tim Schoen. Yeah, Chipper Terry, Mickey. Yep. Okay, we got all you guys. Very cool. All right, everybody. You guys have a great evening. Be on the lookout, of course, for the Halloween special tomorrow night from 217 Terror Haunted House. Be a cool video. We did our Haunted House special there last year, but very different this time.
Very different this time.
Very different. Well, we had some new toys this time around, too.
Yeah.
We caught something on there.
Caught something, and it was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
It was very cool. So, and there's Debisme08. Great show. Thank you. Thank you, too. All right. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow. And then, of course, we'll have our Friday Night Ghost Race, and we'll be back right here next week, same time. All right. If you haven't yet, please subscribe.
If you've already subscribed, please share it out.
And share it out. Yeah.
Share the love.
Share the love. Share the love. Can't do too many calls to action. People get overwhelmed. So we'll leave it at that. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Happy Halloween.